Ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary, welcome to the Discourse for today, August 25th, 2023. I'm your host, Tristan. Hello. Hello, Internet. Just want to start off by giving some credit to Dazia, one of the regulars in the Discord, for making this awesome little meme in response to last week's stream. So thank you for that. I love it, and I'm going to keep it on here for at least a little while yet. So thank you. Thank you. For everybody, hi, my name's Tristan. I'm the host of the YouTube channel Step Back, which you're the channel that used to make successful videos and now makes unsuccessful videos, which you can find at stepbackhistory.com. You can also check out my other I'm also the co-host of the podcast It's Probably Not Aliens, which just got back into recording this week, so excited for that, which you can find at probsnotaliens.com. Next, also, I stream on Fridays at noon, which is what this is right now. That is what you are currently watching on your screen. If you wish to support my work, you can go to nebula.tv/stepback. If you want to sign up for Nebula, you get a whole bunch of awesome content from a myriad of very good creators who make really cool stuff. And by signing up through my link, you give me a direct portion of your membership fees for as long as you stay a member, which really helps out. You can also help out by signing up for Patreon at patreon.com/stepbackhistory if you want something a little bit more direct. As far as what I do for that, perks that are available involve helping me vote on future video topic suggestions or future video topics. You get access to a private Q&A that I do once a month where I can really answer questions in deep and, without worrying about the public internet getting involved. And yeah, you get videos access, early video access at the exact same time that people on Nebula do. If you also want to support right now and you just got a few bucks lying around, things like super chats are, of course, welcome and appreciated. Not necessary. The show will always be free, but hey, if you feel like it, they're always appreciated. My latest video is about artificial intelligence and the kind of curious things that happen to societies when new technologies enter into them, and try to put my hands into the discourse of AI. Which was a bit too late because approximately 0 people actually watched the video. So the video is one of my biggest flops in the channel's history, which is saying quite a bit. If you haven't had a chance to watch it, maybe do so, and maybe give it some love. My next video, which will hopefully not be a flop, I'm hoping. We'll see. This morning I had a little talk about how I need to psychologically prepare myself for my 4th flop in a row in case the next video doesn't do well. The next video I'm doing is, because it is Step Back's anniversary, I'm revisiting an old video, and I'm revisiting my video on the Rwandan genocide because the Rwandan genocide turns 30 next year. And I have some thoughts about what we can learn from that, especially in regards to the current state of hate speech online and in the world, and the issues of our sort of naive absolutist ideas of freedom of speech. So that's the general gist of the video. I've had a fuckload of random things come up that have prevented me from doing as much work on it as I'd like, but I am cautiously optimistic that the video will get me out of this funk and also talk about something that I really care about. So, And if you want to submit questions for this stream or future streams, we have not a ton of questions. So if you submit one, you'll probably get it read today. But I hang on to them for a month either way. So if I don't get to your question today, I will likely get to it. It's very rare that I don't get to a question. But you can go to the link. It's in the screen right here, but I put it in chat if you don't want to type it in. Please make yourself known in the chat if this is your first time watching the stream. If you're new, please say hi. We have a really awesome chat community. It's a very fun place to be, and we have really good conversations. So yeah, if this is your first time, please say something. Love to have new people join the chat. Whew. I think that's all the things. Now, we have to get into the W's. But before we get into the W's, I'm going to get the M's on. The double M's. So let's get this rolling. Ooh. Oh. We'll see. Mia's typing something, so it might be a bit delayed. Okay. Looks like Mia's not feeling well, so we will not be having Mia today. Alrighty. That's okay. It's sad, but we will persevere. Okay. And it's okay. This is my second Vivant stream too, so this will be really fun. All right. So then you guys are just stuck with me today. Ha-ha! So that means that we can quickly get into the wins. Everybody, if you don't know, the first thing we do before we get, because I'm a historian, YouTuber who talks about radicalization and like the far right and, you know, the multiple crises that the world is facing at the moment, which can get people down. And as part of my dedication to anti-doomer action, we celebrate to start our stream by talking about things that we did to win, big and small, whether it be that you have succeeded in getting into a great university program, or that, you know, you somehow ended capitalism without telling anybody, or that you managed to overcome inertia and get that thing that you wanted to get done, even if it's just taking out the trash. We celebrate all wins, big and small, in this opening segment. So that's the best part. Wins for Tristan this week. My son has been very, very fun. He's kind of like turned a corner, and he's being in a very, very good mood the last few days. That has been very enjoyable. And I think this week I got my first night where I actually slept like 7 hours. That I haven't done I probably haven't done since 2022, like January of 2022. So, yeah, I actually got my first good night's sleep in like over almost 2 years, which was quite amazing. What else? I mean, the Vivance has been working really well. I probably need to up my dosage a little bit, but I feel really, really good. We started recording It's Probably Not Aliens again after Scott was away for his honeymoon. I made surprising progress on this Rwandan genocide video, despite the fact that this month seems to be dedicated to throwing as much shit in my face that is not making a video as it possibly can. Not to blame anybody for any of these activities, but like the month started with being at Scott's wedding for the first week of it, or at least the first few days. Then it and also started with me releasing the AI video that then was a Hindenburg of a video. But then followed up with when we got home, my son got sick, and Kelly was really busy at work. So basically I lost about 4 or 5 days of work just taking care of my son. Then after that, I'm doing some volunteer work for an organization doing like a social media campaign. And they told me immediately that I absolutely need to finish this project for some committee or something like that in like, what's it called? In like, how do I explain it? Like they absolutely needed to have it done this week. And like this week they're like, I absolutely need to have the rest of them done by the end of the week. And I'm like, bruh, I'm volunteering right now. Like you are giving me, like I have freelance clients who aren't as pushy as you, but now I'm forced to be doing these projects. And I just got dropped positive leftist news this week too. So literally everything possible needs to happen, and my video can't seem to take precedent. So, but somehow I have the outline of a script done. I'm writing the script probably next week, and then trying to film and record because I was supposed to have a video done by Tuesday. Mia, thank you so much for 250 Swedish kroners. I appreciate it. You are a wonderful, wonderful person. Thank you. I know that you're not feeling well, so when you are back and ready to face us again, when you are feeling up and ready for the discourse, then we will be happy to have you back. Thank you again for understanding. I'm watching the stream during my nap. Excellent. Love it. Love a good watch time. But yeah, so somehow the video I'm working on right now is progressing despite the fact that this month has been out for my blood, for some reason. So that's that. Yeah, it's been intense. Daniel's, win is that their vasectomy went well and they're theoretically sterile. Congratulations. That is, you did, okay. So Daniel, not to get too blue, but as a vasectomy owner myself, you are, even after you get the procedure, you're not technically sterile until you have cleared out the tubes with 30 movements, and about 30 anyway. So if you got a vasectomy this week and are already theoretically sterile, you have had one busy week, my friend. Geez. That's a fast recovery, too. Holy crap. Also, you have to get it tested because sometimes there's like a 1 in 2,000 chance of it not working. And I remember because I had to give possibly the most awkward medical like what's it called, medical sample to a nurse that I ever had to do, and I was like man, it's a weird, vasectomies are a weird thing. Anyways, not much of a W, but I went to an open air museum in Arnhem yesterday, and it was a lot of fun. Lots of cool stuff. That's awesome. I love those things. I feel like I should have worked in one of those. I would have had a lot of fun. It combines my love of theatrics history and a crippling desire for attention. 2 children is so many children. I'm happy to not worry about having to die from sleep exhaustion with a third. Yeah. D-Quack or Dazia, who made this. Their W of the week is that they survived a week of training classes for the employment resources program you're in. Sweet. That is great. That is amazing. Survive as a person who's been a student for a long time and survived a lot of very strange classes. That is definitely a win. Got a new job. My parents let me have their old PT Cruiser, so now I have a car to myself. Congratulations, Leah, on that freedom and that income. It's actually, this is another thing that came up this week. I don't know if I consider it a win. In some ways, it's a win because it might be like a future for Tristan Johnson, the person, but it also is kind of me throwing in the towel of the step back, making step back my full-time job, is that I got a lead on possibly working part-time at a beer co-op, which I think is pretty cool. Where I would be, I don't know what I would be doing exactly, but I would be working with beer making in a co-op, which is pretty fun. Matt sprained their ankle last week, and not only has it healed enough that I can start putting some weight on it, at least while standing. You've been drawing for the first time since the sprain, since now you can sit up more. That is awesome. I was like saying, like, wait a minute, do you draw with your feet? But that makes more sense. Get another dub. I got good sleep last night, which I could not tell because I spent 9 hours, but my arm was covered in drool, which is a sign I slept good. Rarely do I drool in my sleep. Yeah, sweet stuff, man. That's pretty awesome. Matt's been keeping up a good sleep schedule this week. Yeah, sleep is good. Sleep is important. Sleep is key. I'm going to watch that AI video. I believe in workers' rights and unions, but also in using more efficient means of production. Yeah, I think I mentioned that it's like the video's thesis is that AI is like whether or not we have the discussion about whether it is good or bad, it definitely is. And isn't anytime soon, and we need to learn how to live in a world where it exists. That is sort of the thesis of my video, and yeah, I guess that wasn't as spicy a take as I thought it was going to be. No one's really pushed back on me for it, so it's about 30 Canadian dollars. Aw, thank you. Machine Gun Willie over here. They sent me home with a cup to use in a couple months. Yeah, they sent me with 2 because they want to do one at 3 months and one at 6 months or something like that. I never did the 6-month one because the chances that your vasectomy spontaneously heals itself after 6 months is something like 1 in 2,000. And I'm like, you know what? I'll roll the dice on that one. I think I actually might have died of awkwardness the first sample I had to give, so I don't really want to worry about I don't really want to do the second one if I don't need to. And it was shown to me as being an optional thing. Win. Meow Nyan trim their eyebrows. Fucking A. I did get offered a volunteer thing at a museum. The electric trams they were running. That is freaking awesome. Scotty Lilac Leona is alive, and that is always a win. I agree. Socialist beer. I mean, I don't know how. I don't know about the politics of the beer co-op itself. I just know that I go there a lot, and it's a pretty cool place, and the beer they make is really good. And they're a co-op, which does say some positive things. The only downside, although I think it's going to be nothing, it's probably not going to cost that much or anything like that. But one of the things about co-ops that they don't tell you is that when you do join a co-op, usually there's a period where you're an employee before you join, you become an owner, and to go on you usually have to pay some money, but it probably won't be that much. But by not much, I mean it'll probably be like $1,000 or something like that. I don't know, but either way, then you become a part owner of it, which is pretty nice. It's a legit co-op, so that's pretty cool. But they make some pretty cool stuff. They make this lilac cream ale that is fucking amazing, and a coffee cream ale that is also fucking amazing, which is difficult, I learned, because coffee flavored beer is tough. The chemical that makes the flavor of coffee in coffee, if it's not very, very delicately treated, will just turn into the taste of green peppers, and nobody really wants green pepper flavored beer. If you think about it, if you kind of articulate without the smell and the image in your head, there is a commonality between the taste of coffee and green peppers, and you have to dance with that. But it's not a dark beer; it's a coffee cream ale. It's so good. Freaking changed my life. Ugh. Plus, I like to be able to look up references on my laptop. It's awkward swapping between holding a sketchbook and glancing at your phone. Yeah, that's true. So that is all. I'd kind of like green pepper beer. Well, there you go. If that's the thing you're into. I feel like that coffee beer is definitely a more desirable flavor, especially when you're trying to sell beer, than green pepper flavored beer. But yeah, but I'm excited. It's this isn't a place that I was it's one of those things where I wasn't searching for a job or anything like that. It was just this is a brewing co-op that I literally go to get beer almost weekly, for years. Been going probably since I think I've been going since almost like since they opened, which was like in 2016 or 2017. So yeah. So I'm pretty and then they were like, oh yeah, we're like, because like I'm like, as mentioned, Step Back has had 3 failed videos in a row, and like it's not doing super great, and like, you know, I haven't been really doing well on converting people to Nebula and like all that kind of stuff. So I'm like thinking like, oh, I probably should be putting some serious thought into what kind of ways I can be making income that isn't this YouTube channel that doesn't seem to want to get moving. So this is like a thing that would be like a new thing to do that aligns with my values and also feels like a thing that like would be pretty cool and I would be happy with. So yeah, it's like the first like new job that I could go into that doesn't feel like I'm like giving up or failing, you know? Let's see. Speaking of W's, tomorrow is my first meetup with my Danish friend to look at each other's art for the first time in a few weeks tomorrow. Fucking A. That's awesome. We love, what's it called? The best way to become a better writer and become a better artist in really any platform is to have friends and people where you give your stuff to them and they ruthlessly critique it. I think it was Shannon Strucci who said that like the best way to like become funny and like develop a sense of humor is to do something like living in a writing room or like spend time in a writer's room or with like a bunch of funny friends who are ready to relentlessly like tear apart ideas that aren't funny, because you sort of hone your sense of humor. Same with your writing. Like writing, the best way for your writing to get stronger is to write a lot and have people look at it like ruthlessly critique it and give it like and like, you know, become better on the outset of it, which like as someone who has, you know, reasonably bad rejection sensitive dysphoria is, it's a tough thing to do, but if you can get yourself in the right mindset for it, it is the best way to improve at a craft like that. It feels weird being a Midwestern college student who doesn't drink beer. I mean, let's be fair. In America, what you guys drink is, for like mainstream beer. I've said that when I was at Scott's wedding, I was talking to the bartender, and I said like, American beer is a land of contrasts because the American like mass-produced beer is some of the worst shit in the world. It is the most generic, blandest, like bubbly water I've ever had. And like, I'm kind of glad that Americans are getting into stuff like White Claw, because from the taste of their like mainstream beer, like their Bud Lights, that's basically what they want to be drinking. But their craft beer, like American craft beer, is really good. They have like, European craft beer is also really good, but it's really mired in tradition and their breweries are like centuries old, which is cool, but it does mean that they don't really foster a lot of experimentation. So like American craft beer is like cool and interesting because there's always something new and weird going on, which I think is really cool. All right. Elf this week, though, is that an anti-ABA march happening this weekend. Can't go because of my leg, but I'm going to see if I can contact the organizers with no future actions. Well, you're making the right choice. TBH, I can't much like alcohol. I tried hard iced tea last night and the taste was still bad for me. I can't do bad taste or strong smells or burning feelings. Heineken is popular in America, which tells me all I need to know about American beer taste. Yeah, if you want a mass-produced beer in America, try Blue Moon. I think it's the best-tasting beer in the nationwide distribution. Yes, we have Blue Moon in Canada. It's called Belgian Moon here, though, for some reason. And it's good. It's good. And I like the varieties. Like, the thing is that Blue Moon in America has a lot more varieties that I enjoy. So when I go to the U.S., I tend to look at what Blue Moon's doing because they have cool things. They had an horchata beer once when I was in New York City, and I still think about how good that beer was. But yeah, Blue Moon, or in Canada it's called Belgian Moon, but it's really good. It is definitely the best like mass marketed beer that you can get in the US. Spicy take, I know, but Lack of experimentation with the exception of Belgium. They experiment a lot with their beers, yeah. American craft beer isn't made by monks. That is true. It's made, yeah. Or Chata beer. Oh, I gotta find that. Yeah, I don't know if it was like a one-off special that they were doing for Blue Moon, but I found it in like a fucking bodega in New York City, and Kelly and I went back to the hotel and drank the entire 6-pack, and we were like, this was like some of the best beer we ever had, and I still think about it. I was wondering if you had any thoughts about the use of sanctions. It's hard for me to see how we could affect any serious environmental or economic globally without them, despite the negatives. Sanctions are a multifaceted subject that you could delve into. There's some complicated things about how well they actually work because of how flexible markets are. And when they do work, how they are usually draconian and pretty awful. Like, when I think about like how Russia has like had like every fucking economic sanction thrown on it that it could, and all that really happened is that the economic like systems of the countries just sort of adapted, and like eventually you found that like Russia was still selling as much oil as it was before. It's just found ways into new markets or into the mainstream, the same markets it did before, just through obsequious means. Like, for example, West Africa, which does a lot of oil exportation, has like, you know, they're participating in the sanctions against Russia, which means that less than half of all oil going into countries like Europe or America can be Russian. So there's like these Russian tankers that come over from China that have like 49% Russian oil. Like their tanks are 49% full of Russian oil. And then they go to like Nigeria or something like that, or Mali, they're all oil exporters, and they just fill it up to the top. So it's 51%, you know, West African oil and 49% Russian oil. And then those same boats just go to Europe and sell the oil, which gets around European Union sanctions against Russian oil. So like, it's like, yeah, it's, but like, for example, the sanctions that the United States put on Iraq in the 1990s did cause massive, like mass starvation, and like stopped Iranian or Iraqis from getting like basic medical necessities and food and all those kinds of things. And people starved and died of preventable diseases in huge numbers. And people like Madeleine Albright said, yeah, that's the point. Because the idea is that if you do a sanction hard enough, that the people who are under sanctions will turn on their own government to, you know, basically force the government change that the country imposing the sanctions want to make. It typically doesn't work. How can you apply pressure for serious changes without them? This depends upon what kind of thing. Like, if you're talking about like climate sanctions, that is definitely going to happen. If you read like Climate Leviathan and stuff like that, like the ways that rich countries are going to basically like lord over countries is they're going to talk about like the right to emit, and they'll be like, look, we with our super advanced and rich country have stopped emitting carbon dioxide, but you, country that is, you know, developmentally like 40 years behind us, you are also not allowed to emit carbon dioxide, and we're going to put sanctions on you to force you to not do it. And they'll be like, well, shit, I guess I'm just stuck in perpetual economic underdevelopment and will always be subservient to Western imperialist power. Huh. It's not exactly like that kind of stuff. And very often it'll be used to, like, a lot of times sanctions, like even for like good things like climate change stuff, will be used to essentially try to reinforce Western capitalist hegemony. Because you can't really have a successful sanction unless your trade is a necessity for that country, right? So what are your solutions? What's the alternative? Tristan, solve the climate crisis right now. Well, the major things is that step one, destroy capitalism. To be fair, that is basically what needs to happen. We don't have the capacity to really long-term solve climate change without dealing with the fact that it was created by neoliberal capitalism, and that until it is gotten rid of, we can ameliorate and slow down the problem, but we can't really stop it altogether, because our world is driven by an ideology that you can have infinite growth on a finite planet, which is basically impossible. So that's where we are. Like, that's like the problem. And unfortunately, like, the solution is not going to be like a market-based thing, like a sanction or tariffs or anything like that. It's going to be, if there is going to be a successful change in the climate, policy and stuff like that, it's going to be investment. It's going to be building the infrastructure to change the way that we use and distribute energy that doesn't come with dollar signs on it. Like, even though now, and also just change a political will. There's talk as if we don't have the technology. The technology exists. It's even you think that the people who say the market's going to solve climate change. It's well, right now, a kilowatt of wind power is cheaper, a lot cheaper than a kilowatt of coal. But because there are so many politicians who are dependent on the votes of people who want coal to stay a thing, and that coal is still a powerful, moneyed lobby, they're still trying to keep it going. They're still fighting to keep a dying industry alive because of the money and power that the people invested in it have. And even with that effort, even with the government doing basically all it can do to try and keep coal going, it's still failing. It's still an industry. Nobody smart is actually building new oil plants. Like Donald Trump, when he ran for president, ran on we're going to invest in coal. We're going to get coal back going. And then he put all of these incentives out to try and get coal to be a thing. And no one bit, because anybody who knows anything about business knows the last thing you want to be doing today is starting a new fucking coal plant or starting a new coal mine, right? Like petrol, that's a different story. That's going to be a more complex thing to get out of. But coal is a very much a dying industry. But what does exist is still being it's being kept slow. The other thing too, turn coal plants into nuclear plants. I wish. The design of both of those plants are very, very different from each other. And the problem, this is the part that's going to get me in shit, because every time I talk about nuclear power in anything except that it is the best thing that has ever happened and we should just do all that all the time, I get in shit. But the problem with nuclear power is that their plants take 10 years to get built, and they're outrageously expensive to build. And we don't really have the time to switch to a nuclear-based power system in the amount of time it would take to deal with the issue. Because your average nuclear power plant takes 15 years to build and costs $20 billion or whatever. But things like solar panels and wind power are very cheap, and got astonishingly cheap in recent times. So the only if there was anything that was an actual technological I think my cat wants out of the office. 1 second. BRB. Go. All right, I am back. So, if we wanted, the real technological, what's it called? Bottlenecks that we need to deal with is the fact that we haven't had a really big breakthrough that we need to have on battery technology, and there's like a prohibitively large cost for neoliberal countries on electricity infrastructure that, because neoliberals have been privatizing the electrical grid so much over the last few decades, it has not been invested in, it has not been developed, it has not been improved, it has just been degrading and is becoming less efficient when we need it to become a lot more efficient. And of course, we spent the last half century destroying all public infrastructure and public transit and all that kind of stuff, which also increases our dependence on cars, which increases our dependence on oil. And furthermore, the most powerful economy on Earth is the United States, which is an oil exporter and is financially invested in keeping people on oil for as long as we can get away with, because it means more money for extremely powerful oil corporations. So, yeah. That's the major like bottlenecks that we have to deal with. As far as how I solve this crisis, it is that we need to be like there are the major issue that we have to deal with is two. One, all of the wealthy countries are disproportionately contributing to climate change. We need to be like the countries that, like, if you think about it on like a per capita basis, the countries that are contributing the most to climate change are Canada, the United States, and Europe. That needs to be like, those are the places where we need to be addressing first, because we are like using a disproportionately large amount, or we are emitting a disproportionately large amount of carbon dioxide that needs to be controlled, and we have the money to do so. The second is that we need to then find and fund and finance development that does not involve going through the sort of carbon period that the rest of the Western imperialist core went through. Unfortunately, we're very invested in keeping these countries poor, and using less efficient means of energy like coal and gas are part of that process. But if we move away from that, we wouldn't be needing to like help countries like, for example, Nigeria right now is going through a massive economic period of growth. Their population's increasing, they're kind of entering the world stage and industrializing at a fast rate. Nigeria has oil, and Nigeria is going to use its oil to make its money and grow, because that is how countries grow. They need to harness their resources and get more sources of energy to grow an economy. So we need to find a way to have it so that a country like Nigeria can grow and, modernize like the rest of the world without using their fossil fuel reserves. This is sort of like the conversation that we had last week about overpopulation, and about how people I think the policy last time was like, we need to use like harsh like tax like burdens and stuff like that to like force having children to be so expensive and punitive that people just stop having kids and the population goes down. And I argue that, one, that's not going to solve the issue of overpopulation, because or not going to solve the issue of resource use, because the people who are having the most kids right now are not the ones who are using the most resources. But the way that, if you did want to address the issue, is more to help the people in those countries get the modernize in the way that the same way that the countries that had low population growth would. So like, if you want to deal with climate change, you need to have the countries that are developing right now find a way to develop without so we need to modernize get our shit in order first, because we're the ones causing the problem. And then for the countries that are developing and will be going through the exact same issues in the future, give them a path, and give not sell them, not finance, but give them the literal infrastructure that they need to modernize their economies that does not rely on fossil fuels. And that will be the way to do it. So that is sort of the general the thing that I would say is that if you need to deal with climate change, and you don't have the time to overthrow capitalism and put in the socialist world order that would then create a planned ecosystem like setup where like things would work well, then you need to basically just give people a fuckload of money to like get through this sort of major infrastructure transition that we need to do in order to do so. So, yeah. Unfortunately, that would involve not using climate change in order to enrich the richest countries in the world. So a lot of people will not do that, is the problem. If I had more of like a dream situation, I was thinking about this morning because, as per chat's recommendation, I eventually did like watch all of Sophie from Mars's climate change video or The World Is Not Ending video that came out like I think like 2 weeks ago now or something like that. I watched it over a period. I listened to it over a period of like 3 or 4 days, but I finished it this morning, and it came at the same time where I was kind of spitballing ideas for a science fiction literary project that I'm working on, and one of the things that I think is going to be important for both of those things is I think that there's like, if we're going to deal with this issue, it's going to be realizing that we are not going to solve a lot of big problems that powerful people deal with by relying on powerful people to solve them. This is sort of the issue I have with more authoritarian communists, like people that, like, I guess the derogatory term is tanky, but like Marxist-Leninists and such, is that they don't realize that the issue isn't that the wrong people have the power, it's that power makes people bad, essentially. And being able to wield power over other people is like at the core of all of the problems of our world, including overuse of resources and like, you know, tyranny and authoritarianism and exploitation and, you know, sexism and racism and all of those things all come from like that issue. And so, like, I haven't like fully fleshed out the idea yet, because I'm kind of imagining like the idea that I'm trying to make is basically like a utopian vision of the future that comes from a realistic understanding of how things could go from right now to a post-state, post-capitalist society. And the main thrust that I think I'm going with is that we are going to need to learn that we can't sort of we can't put aside our connections with people. Like, we have obligations to our community around us. We have obligations to our household. We have obligations to our neighborhoods and our communities that at the moment we decided to not participate in, and just sort of give that obligation over to the state. And the state has largely given a lot of that obligation over to private for-profit corporations. And I think that as basically there's just no money to exploit out of the majority of people, and as the state has basically largely gutted itself in favor of turning everything over to private corporations, that there's going to be large amounts of the world right now, like large amounts of people that are just going to be functionally abandoned by pretty much all public and private efforts. And at that point, the only thing that people will be able to do is learn to work with each other and learn to build things. And so I imagine a society that's built out of like labor unions and tenants unions and like neighborhood organizations and like all of these like small little tight-knit things developing into more of what we could end up being a more ideal society from. And if we want to deal with climate change on a large issue, we basically need to need to shrink a lot of our like I think we need a lot of these sort of like big organizations that see people and resources as mere abstractions, and we need to get rid of that and move towards a system where we see people in less abstract terms. A plus DS9 post in the background. Yeah. My wife got this for me for our anniversary, and I love it. It's on the floor for two reasons. One, because if I want to put it up on the wall, I would need a power drill because I have plaster walls because my house is 100 years old. And two, because it stays in the shot if I keep it here. But we'll see. So that's like the main thing that I'm thinking about right now. I'm sure, because I know my audience well enough, and I'm sure once I have like, because my plan is not to make a story that is like the fictional history of this universe that I'm working on, but it's to go through it in depth so that the world of the future that I'm making into like a sort of space opera Star Trek-y type thing makes sense. Or at least like is coherent more than like, the Star Trek universe. And the current plan is to, if you guys want the full plan, I honestly, if you guys tell me that you don't care about this shit, just let me know, because it's kind of like silly. But the idea is that I'm trying to create a future where humanity progresses in that direction, where we sort of evolve past the need for states and all that kind of stuff. And then we're sort of in the far future where we have actually, ventured past our planet and we are going to new places and doing new things. And I do know that people would love the world building, because I know that that's like the kind of thing my audience would be into. But the plan is to eventually turn it into like a thing where I would write alternating novel and then like short story anthologies, which I guess is kind of like the Witcher series, honestly. But the anthologies would be more to explore like, smaller concept issues, character developments, and all that kind of stuff. And then bigger things would be like bigger events and such. That's the idea. I don't know if I'll ever actually get around to it, but at the moment it's sort of a fun creative exercise. And it's the most I have like not thousands, but I have like dozens of random ideas for fiction creation, but this is the one that has sort of engaged me the most. But we'll see where that goes. You're also into creative writing. The thing is, like, I am into creative writing, but I'm not very good at like for my entire life, mostly because I think of ADHD related reasons. I'm not very good at like writing. Like I've always like and like this is not me like being like self-deprecating or anything like that. This is like a legitimate thing. Like I have never been a great writer. That has always been my problem. Even when I was like, a younger person and I was like in college, my teachers would always say like, you're really good at presenting, you have very good ideas, you speak well, but your writing is just not very strong. And so I've always been trying to improve writing. And but it seems like maybe mostly it's about like focus and that kind of a problem. Hey, Meow Nyan, thank you for the $14. Tristan, if you're writing a sci-fi, I might suggest checking out Tomino's original Gundam work and Legend of Galactic Horrors, or play Twilight Imperium. Oh yeah, man. I have on my wish list. I have like a list of treats, because I don't know if you know, but Step Back, I probably said this multiple times over the period of the stream. Step Back is making not very much money, and Tristan is trying at the moment to claw his way out of debt, and then at some point when I am not in debt and I make positive money, then I might buy treats, and I have a list of like treats that I will someday buy someday. And one of the treats to buy is Twilight Imperium. I'm pretty. I know it's like, it's the fucking like what's it called? It's the fucking like Finnegan's Wake of board games. But I've been curious about it for a very long time. I don't know where I'll find anybody who's willing to dedicate a week and a half to playing a board game at my house. But I want to have it. And also like my and also like what's it called? I also need to deal with the fact that my board game bookshelf has the big ass Gloomhaven box that I haven't even opened, and I've owned it for like 3 years. Finnegan's Wake of board games, like Twilight Imperium. Finnegan's Wake is like a novel that people talk about where it's like it's known for being like a very hard game to, or a very hard very hard book to understand. It's like if you read it, it almost seems like it's nonsense, and the story, like the writing, is very opaque, and people really don't like, and like people have to take entire classes to understand Finnegan's Wake and study it. And like Twilight Imperium is known for being like a massive, very complicated board game that takes like if you think about like all of like the sort of bad impulses of board game like culture that make it like a game that like hardcore board games that make people not like board games, like all of those like overly complicated rules, too many bits, too much stuff going on. Twilight Imperium is just all of that. It is just the most of that. It is the most board game. And so you have to to play it, you need to have people who are like almost dedicated board game hobbyists. But I want to get it because it looks really cool. But either way, yeah. But I definitely want to, like my main thing that I want to do is I want to play, or I want to write this project. And it came to my mind a few days ago because I've been having these thoughts about anarchist theory and about why I like anarchist theory more than like, your typical more top-down ideas about how left-wing society should work. And been delving into more ideas about systems and phenomenology and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh, well, like, and the fact that like, we really like, I feel like one of the things that you need, and a lot of things that the left needs right now, is to be able to imagine a future where the problems and crises of our day are actually, surmountable. And so like kind of like what Star Trek did. Star Trek is a utopian vision of the future where we overcome our inhumanity to each other and the scarce resources and learn to live as a better place. And I kind of want that, but also to do it more seriously and with a more with more of my own understanding about how the world works and how people work and such. Think Russia can fight off the counteroffensive the Wagner guys have dealt with? Yeah, I don't know. I know that the leader of the Wagner group got his plane shut down or something, shot down over Ukraine or whatever. If you come at the king, better not miss, I guess, type situation. But I'm honestly so checked out on what's going on in Ukraine right now that I couldn't speak to anything about the war as it exists at the moment. What are my thoughts on solar punk imagery? I saw that American Johnson said he doesn't like that kind of utopianism, but I really like that stuff for the reason that you're just talking about. Yeah, like I think solar punk shit's great. I think that like that is the kind of stuff that we need to be doing, because at the moment I think that, and honestly I think because of like the project of liberal capitalism to destroy even the ability to imagine a different way to run the world has made doomerism and has made so many people on the left feel like there is nothing that we can do. And when you think that there's nothing that we can do, that's giving up. That's not investing in the project, That's just, like, I've talked so much about how things are that the way they are. Things are just like it's just accepted that we have lost the fight, and I think that is a bad way to think. It's counterproductive, it's counter-revolutionary. So, yeah. I even, like, like I've even thought about when I was watching the video this morning, or when I was finishing the video this morning, I actually listened to it because I was doing the dishes. But I was thinking like, hey, I should probably, like, when I think of this idea, I should probably actually pass it by Sophie to see what she thinks, because she and I seem to agree a lot on a lot of things. I have some very slight critiques of Sophie's video, but they are very minor and they do not subtract from the overall thesis of the video in ways that I agree very much. So that is that. Do I have access to Sophie? Yeah. I think Sophie and I are mutuals on X, but also, like, I'm really good friends with Matt/Mildred/Thoughtsline. So if I really needed to get in touch with Sophie and Sophie didn't respond to DMs on Twitter, I could probably just go through him. Tristan, don't call it X. One of the first things that came to mind, by the way, for the setting, and I know that like this is one of the things about my idea for this sci-fi, this space opera thing that's really gonna piss off some of my audience, is that I plan on having one of the major characters in the sort of main setting that I'm in is going to be like he's going to be a Sikh, and he's going to have a turban. And one of the things that I'm going to have as part of my setting that's going to piss off people is that for the large part, religion isn't dead. And that even in a utopian society, religion isn't dead, and people's faith is still an important part of their identity, and that is a thing that we like exist and live with. And I feel like that is going to make people very upset, because yeah, Sikh turbans are cool. Yes. But I think that it's like important, and also like, you know, that like the Starfleet equivalent would have would have the uniform turban and that kind of stuff. Yeah. Tarbox, you actually brought up another thing that I've always been interested in trying to get a good answer for. I actually had like a bit of like a world building talk with Mia about this that was interesting, which is that I like having my, and you guys probably have takes on it too. I imagine that there's more than one trans person in the audience here to give me an answer, which is that I want to have in my because I run a lot of tabletop role playing games, and you know, I'll have a lot of settings, and I want like trans people to exist. Obviously, they exist in the real world. I want like them to be just people that exist in the world. The two things that come up is one, I don't really I don't want to do like tokenism or anything like that. So I don't really want to like draw special attention to the transness of like, say, like an NPC or something like that. Two, I feel like one of the easiest bad things that you can do is like, hey, we've got high science fiction or fantasy, like we got magic spells and stuff like that. So all we do is we just transfigurate you into the body that you desire. And then you are basically indistinguishable from a cis person. And if you think about that, like that's like a cool utopian idea, but also it like means that for like a media sense, that creates a world where there are just functionally like you just don't, like, trans people are functionally invisible, which feels, in some ways it's like it feels like that's obviously like a desired state of being, because trans people would finally have like and exist in the way that they desire. But also it's like, oh, then it's a setting where like trans people like are invisible, and that's the part where I'm like, I think there's got to be a better answer there, you know. Like I had like in my like my main D&D setting, my big fantasy setting. Actually, it's going to be a Pathfinder setting when the new campaign that I'm doing starts. But it is a setting where trans people exist, and that there are, you know, magic crafters, like magical practitioners who do practice the, like, you know, the things that can transform a person's body into whatever body that you want, but it is an expensive thing to do. And the people who do it are like, they're motivated, but also like, you know, you can't get around the spells like expensive reagents. And so like that's sort of like a interesting tension in society that makes things more complicated. But there's no like active discrimination against trans people either, and they can just sort of exist as they are. I mean, for one thing, the body you desire could still visibly be trans for some people. Yeah, that sounds good to me. That's something I would definitely like. The other thing too is that I think in the science fiction setting I want to have it so that our concept of gender in society has changed quite drastically, and that we really don't, that like that in what's it called, that trans, like that like gender is a thing that you decide. It's a thing that you that like traditionally it's a thing that you decide when you like reach adulthood, and that everybody is treated as non-binary and uses they them pronouns until they become adults, and then they choose which gender they wish to belong to. That's like part of the setting that I want to go with. But I can see, I think that I'm getting some really good answers. Like, yeah, people could like be like, you know, non-binary trans people. They could like not desire to pass, especially in a society where there's no pressure to pass. So it could be that. You could also have people who are not into high-tech body modding. Yeah. Yeah, there is the part. You could also just not be seen as trans, but rather the idea of transness is alien because everybody, like the idea that we like are like kind of like strict, you know, categories of gender have just broken down, and everybody sort of presents how they want through various different means, and it isn't like tied to different categories. That would be another interesting way to do it. So, yeah, okay, there's a lot of really cool. I also wrote a disabled brown cyborg who is effectively the muscle and the tinker of the setting. Oh, man. Oh, man. I got to play when I was... It's turned into tabletop talk. When I was, like, several years ago, I played in a cyberpunk campaign where my character was, like... We had this, like... There's this weird trio of people because, like... we had like the characters, like the one character, like we had one character who her thing is she was like a social media celebrity who then also turned into a revolutionary terrorist and was like using her big social media platform to like push people into revolutionary action. And then we had another character who was just like an obnoxious teenager who liked driving cars, and he had a car. That was his thing. But my character was named Anonym. That was her name, Anonym, which was inspired by Left Anonym. If anybody, Left Anonym I feel like is a bit of a deep cut these days, but Left Anonym is a Scottish biohacker who regularly like she has a blog where she regularly writes about all the times that she has to go to the hospital because she implants. It's like she is a biohacker in like the most legit sense, in that she legitimately like performs surgery on herself to implant shit into her own body, and she writes a blog about how like the stuff how she does it and her thoughts behind it and all the kind of stuff she does, and also doesn't shy away from the fact that a lot of stuff regularly goes wrong, and she goes to the hospital constantly with like nerve damage or like infections or like immune response to things, like all those kinds of things. She's like, I always think that she's like really, really, really fucking cool. How do you spell her name? Her name is spelt, I'll write it in chat. It's LEPHTANONYM. Tristan, if you want to talk writing and stuff, hit me up. Sure. But yeah, so like Left Anonym, she's like when I was really into biohacking when I was like 18, I thought she was the coolest fucking person that I'd ever seen. She is like the biohacker who like actually lives her fucking theory. She's like, I don't care about like becoming a cyborg at potentially in the future. I'm gonna become one right fucking now. So she did shit like gave herself an extra sense by putting she surgically implanted tiny neodymium magnets at the end of all of her fingers, which are like, these are like very sensitive parts of your body. So she did that, I know, I imagine very painfully, but because she had like these little tiny magnets in her fingers, what she started to develop was basically like a sort of like an extra sense of she was able to sense electromagnetism in a very small way. Apparently they got infected and she had to get them removed, but that was a really cool idea, and I loved shit like that. Anyways, I made a character whose name was Anonym, and her whole thing was that like in like a sort of cyberpunk future, she operated the version of like those like sketchy cell phone stores. Those like, do you guys know those like they're like, those like sketchy cell phone stores where you go to get like fairly questionable repairs, and usually one of the things you can do there is you can get your phone jailbroke. You can jailbreak your phone there. So her thing, what her store, her like whole business was that she did like illegal mods and did jailbreaking on cybernetic parts. So she had like I took like a feat where you can get extra cybernetic parts. She was she was like fucking cybernetic out to the gills. And her whole thing is that she did like illegal modifications of cyborg parts, and she like, did like, hey, your left arm doesn't work anymore because you refuse to pay the subscription fee, so I'm going to like go and like fuck around with your arm so it works again. She did that kind of stuff. It was really awesome. I was one of my favorite characters. And because of her things, she was not a social media star, and she was not the like she was not driver as a class. So she had to do basically all of the action sequences because she had all of the hacking skills and all of like the like physical prowess skills. So she had to do all of the like acrobatics and like all of the hacking and like all that stuff. So I became like the person who did all of the like the hard work of cyberpunk shit. Cause kind of like on Star Wars, getting cybernetics is like getting a tattoo. Yeah. So yeah. Anyways, talking a lot of that was like one of the things that we talked about in the setting that we made together for that game was that cybernetic parts, like basically like bioengineering became like the thing for the wealthy, and so like rich people, if they lost an arm or if they got sick, they could just regrow their arm. Like they could just get like they could just regrow organs and stuff like that. Poor people, because of like decreased medical care and like worse environment, if they had things break down, they got replaced with cybernetic parts. And cybernetic parts are like, they were cheaper, but also they were private, so they were owned by corporations, which meant that like if you like had to get your kidneys replaced with like cybernetic kidneys, you then had to pay a subscription to the kidneys to keep them functioning. And so a lot of people found themselves like in permanent like serfdom to these like cybernetic corporations because all of their parts, like their organs and limbs, became like live surfaces basically. And so like Anonym's thing is that she was a criminal who circumvented those. I thought it was a really cool thing. Yeah. Anyways, what were we talking about? We were talking about something. climate change or something. And like, yeah, maybe I should answer some questions. I feel like that would be a good thing to do more than halfway through the stream. But yeah, I do love, like, I have a lot of creative ideas and a lot of world building and writing and fiction stuff that I want to do, but I just never do it because writing is so hard and it's such a big part of like my daily job. So hopefully, I'm hoping that like maybe I can get into it and really learn to enjoy the process of writing. Kidney Plus. Oh my God. What happens when the part you need is no longer kept in stock? Yeah, that's another thing I could imagine that Anonym would have dealt with. That campaign didn't last super long, but I just was like really enamored by the character. There was, in that same group, I also played, my next character after that was, it was in a space opera setting, and one of the major parts of the setting that we made was that uplifted plants and animals were like a thing. We played Microscope beforehand to develop the setting, and one of the things we developed was that like cyber animals, like uplifted animals that we called like Cyber X were like a thing. And also there was a species where everybody was a clone of each other and they all had the exact same name. But my character in that was was a criminal underlord, was a crime lord, who was extremely rich and was basically like the funder of the ship that they were on, and did like basically had all of the money and all the stuff. But because it was played in Fate Core, and my character had no like actually good skills for like action or like doing any sort of adventuring. He was just his superpower was rich, and he was an uplifted panda bear whose name was Blitz Carlton, and he was obsessed with like collecting like stupid random bullshit from Earth's past, and had a crippling addiction to candy. Uplifted. Uplifted is a science fiction trope where you basically use technology to take like a species of animal or plant or something like that and give them human-like intelligence. So I played a panda bear that was uplifted. And he had no discernible useful skills except being very rich and well connected. I was very amused. The main character was a repo man who stole cybernetic organs from customers who couldn't pay their subscription fees. Whew. Yeah, I guess like I did hear that. Yeah, I mean, the best way to explain uplifting, I guess, is Rocket Raccoon. And I've been told, I haven't seen the new Guardians of the Galaxy, but I've heard that that's what that's about. All right. The first question here I got here is actually from Matt Lipton, which said, I hate to be that guy, but I can't be the only one who thinks the current UFO hearings are some kind of op. Like, people are suddenly trusting the U.S. military not to be making shit up and distract people. So there's two ways. So, okay. So anyone doesn't know, this has come up a lot with me lately because, of course, as the sort of David Grush stuff has been coming to, the congressional hearing that David Grush did a few weeks ago, because of, the podcast has been coming extremely relevant to me. So people have been talking a lot about how that's a thing that I have to address. And I did an episode about it. What sucked is that I did the episode about it. We recorded it in July, and then all that shit went down, and we hadn't released the episode yet. And so I finally did release the episode and got to talk about it. But the main thing that I would say is there are two ways that you can look at it. One, you could go the yeah, all of this UFO stuff is just like the United States, like trying to, without, making a boogeyman out of a single country, try to get people's faith and, desire to keep America building this insanely large military that they don't need through, like, the fear of the aliens. Or the second one, which I think is more what I believe to be right, which is that the military is one of the most overfunded organizations in history. It might actually be the most overfunded organization in history, which means that they throw lots of money at completely stupid ideas constantly. And we have this idea that, like, because we live in a society where we're not the military, and so we're always, like, trying to save money wherever we can. The military doesn't have to do that. They have basically infinite money. They can do anything they want and investigate any stupid thing they want. Which means that, and also the military is, is made up of people who are trained to not question, to not think critically, to just kind of follow orders and do the thing you're told to do. And it results in the fact that if you are like the military can just be like duped into putting tons of money and resources into stupid things that aren't real. So like David Grush might be able to convince people about UFOs because he's a dupe. Like, because even if he's like, making shit up, the military will like believe it because it's so big that no one can like clarify anything. And, there's like people will just give money. Like people will just do that. Like, the most famous example is, and I think there was a movie about it. Yeah, there's a book and a movie about it, which was called Men Who Stare at Goats, which was when the military ran into a guy who claimed that he could kill goats by staring at them. And the military, being interested in such a thing, decided to invest an embarrassing amount of money into trying to get people to kill goats with their minds. This is why, like, when like conspiracy theorists talk about like how, like the military put money into investigating whether or not ESP is real, and they put it into like mind control and stuff like that. And it's like, yes, the military does put money into stupid shit that makes no sense, because they have so much money that they can just do that. Wait, this was real. Yes, it was. So like that kind of, like the military does that kind of stuff regularly. And so like the idea that the UAP task force exists and they're seriously investigating whether or not these things are aliens when they're probably not, is very, it's very like on brand for the military, because they have infinite money and the organization is so impossibly huge that nobody really because nobody has to worry about budgets and nobody really has to care, no one, and there's no like actual checks or watchdogs or anything. The military can pretty much do whatever it wants, and nobody really pays attention to what other people are doing, so they can just investigate any stupid thing they want. MK Ultra happened. Yeah, it's another example. MK Ultra happened because the military somehow got convinced that it could actually do mind control by just giving people lots of LSD. It didn't work, and they abandoned it. But it went on for a really long time because the US military just gets infinite money and can do whatever the fuck it wants. They did Project Blue Book from the 1940s to the 1960s, where they investigated UFOs and concluded that, probably not. And honestly, like, I think there's a lot of times where we assume a conspiracy on behalf of the US government when incompetence or being easily duped is actually part of it as well. Problem is, MK Ultra had real consequences for people's lives. Yeah. They took like people and gave them like amounts of LSD that is not safe for people to take, and people had like traumatic trips because of it. And it didn't get them the mind control they wanted, but it did fuck up a lot of people's lives, because acid's one of those things where, like, I'm not against taking LSD. Like, if you like LSD, like, go with the gods, it's your thing. But LSD is a thing that, like, you know, if you're going to take it, you have to know what you're taking and take it in safe doses. And they did not do that. Maybe I should make an MK Ultra video. I feel like one of the things that my Ancient Apocalypse video should have taught me is I need to lean in harder on debunking conspiracy theories. Because I feel like that's a thing that works with people. Talking about AI, definitely not a thing people want. Talking about China, definitely not a thing people wanted. Doing a tier list of all US presidents, very much a thing nobody wanted. So maybe I need to do, like, I need to lean in heavier on the conspiracy theory angle. I plan on making a JFK video in November, so that'll help with it. Because, like, yeah, I feel like one of the things is that you really can't separate the American far right with conspiracy theories. They're too intertwined, and I mean, like people talking about right-wing radicalization, like that's such a big niche now that maybe I need to drill down and make more of my focus on conspiracy culture, because I think conspiracy theories speak a lot about American culture and the American far right as well. You like the tier list? Yeah. The problem is, like, my last 3 videos have all been not what everybody expects me to make. They've been kind of different because, you know, I feel like if I just keep making the same stuff over and over and over again, that Step Back viewers is going to be this, like, this singular shrinking audience that will kind of never, like, stick together. And I tried, you know, with my China video to talk about what I thought was an important thing. Then I tried with a tier list video to sort of speak to it. And the tier list video was sort of a thing that I did because of VidCon. But also it was me trying to, like, be a little bit more fun and unhinged, and that didn't do well. And now I did the AI video because it was a topic that I was really interested in, and I wanted to have my say on it. But it didn't do very well, and I heard that from some other people that, like, AI videos in general aren't doing very well anymore. People aren't really interested in the topic anymore, so I probably just got in on it too late. Hope my Rwandan genocide video will be different. Hey, Meow Nyan, thank you so much for the 279 super chat. Underground bases, yeah. Underground bases would also be a good one. One of the biggest draws of the channel is the fact that I can speak directly to you once a week and that you actually respond to things I say, which is a big deal. Aw, thank you. If you do conspiracy videos, mention the harms that belief in grand conspiracies is not only harmful, but nearly impossible to keep secret. Yeah. My 9/11 video I made last year, I spoke to that. And yeah, I'll probably have to say when I talk about the JFK video. The JFK video is going to be a tough one because, like, I don't want the video to be, like, 20 hours long. But the JFK conspiracy theory is one of those things where, like, the believers in it have such a, like, rich and developed lore and mythology surrounding the JFK assassination that, like, there was a documentary that came out about on the channel Let Me Know about just the Texas Book Depository, and it was a 2-hour documentary, and just that one, like, micro subject within the JFK assassination. And I know that if I make, like, a big general video about the JFK assassination and why it probably was not the American government assassinating its own president for nebulous reasons that no one seems to be able to pin down, because he wanted to end Vietnam despite the fact that he's the one who started fucking Vietnam, it would not be a very successful. I feel like it'll be incomplete, or I'll be responded to with, like, a bunch of, like, weird bullshit comments. So I need to think about how to do it. I could also do one about anti-Semitism and conspiracy theories. Yeah, I mean, every conspiracy theory, if you dig down deep enough, almost always traces its origins back to the, to the protocols. And, like, anti-Semitism is basically in every single conspiracy theory. Did I listen to the Well, There's Your Problem about JFK? I have not. I did not know they did that. JFK died because it's actually not hard to kill somebody with a gun. This is the answer, right? Like, several U.S. presidents now, like, pretty much every U.S. president, every U.S. president that's been assassinated has been assassinated because it turns out that protecting somebody from ever getting shot by a person with a gun is impossible. like, for example, there's no, like, there wouldn't be a way to do it, right? Like, there would be, like, how? And the other thing too is, like, one of the reasonings for the JFK conspiracy is because their investigation into JFK's assassination is so full of redactions and top secret stuff. The problem with that is that there are other reasons besides the fact that it's a conspiracy theory that would explain that. Like, the main thing is that, like, that their report, which took, like, a long time to put together, their report is essentially a big and detailed breakdown about how one guy with a gun could kill the US president, and that all of their Secret Service efforts to protect the president didn't matter because one guy with a gun was able to take him down. And explain, and also, like, through their investigation goes through point by point exactly how he did it. Now, could you imagine why maybe the government wouldn't be very forthcoming with that information? The second bit is because Lee Harvey Oswald spent a good amount of time in Cuba during his sort of, like, during his life, and he had, like, his politics were confused. He was not mentally well, I don't think. But Lee Harvey Oswald, like, spent a good amount of time in Cuba as part of his life, and to investigate, one of the theories that they had was that this was an assassination in the Soviet Union, yeah. And so one of the theories was that Lee Harvey Oswald was, like, a undercover assassin from the Soviet Union or from Cuba, because, JFK was so antagonistic towards Cuba and the Soviet Union. So that meant that, like, in order to figure out what he did there and to prove that, they would have had to go through their intelligence assets in Cuba and in the Soviet Union, which means that they would have had to contact the US spies, American spies in, like, Russia and in Cuba, to go and ask people and back channel and get all that information. The thing is, intelligence networks in countries are, they're complicated and they're big and they're widespread and they have all sorts of stuff going on. Which means that in the stuff, like the stuff that's in the report now that's still redacted, has to do with the kind of intelligence networks that they built. Probably because those intelligence networks still exist today. Because America, like every country, basically has spies in almost every country. So, like, there are still American spies in Russia that probably have, started their network back during the Cold War. And the report shows, like, if somebody were to go through the report of the JFK assassination, where they went through their Russian assets to figure stuff out about what happened with him there, even if it turned out that he was not a Soviet assassin, which he wasn't, then to do that, they would have had to, like, go through their thing, and they would have written, like, a detailed account about how they got all the information so that they can verify it. And if someone were to go through that, they could probably use that to trace lineages and stuff to get the current American spies in Russia today. Same with Cuba. America still has spies in Cuba, and this would be a way for them to, like, the Cubans could use that information to find out who the American spies are in Cuba. No one's been able to recruit the... Yeah, okay, there's the other thing, too, is, like, bullets are fucking weird. So, okay, the other thing that a lot of the JFK conspiracy theories rely on, too, is, one, they rely on a misunderstanding about how ballistics work. Two, they rely on eyewitness testimony that changed. Like, a lot of the times there are people like, oh, like, they rely out too much on eyewitness testimony, especially eyewitness testimony of people, like, multiple decades after the events. And 3, they rely on a lot of understanding of physics that's just bad. Like the first thing about like, oh, like back and to the left, right? Like he got shot in the front of his head, or no, he got shot in the back of his head. Why did his head go back when a bullet entered the front of his head? Shouldn't have gone forward. But that is not how physics works, because what would have happened is when the bullet entered into the back of his head, it would have hit the front of his skull, and and would have like bounced around, like, you know, basically turning his brain into fucking goop. And when he got shot, like when people get shot in the back of the head, their head goes back because of that. That's just like, that's how the sort of physics of it works. How, like, you know, like how the bullet, like, you know, went through all these things, I feel like is just a red herring. Like, yeah, bullets are weird. Bullets don't move on straight angles. They bounce around. They ricochet. It's fucked up. Bullets are it's a very small thing moving at a very high velocity. A lot of weird things can happen. But also, the other one is that people said that they heard sounds from the grassy knoll. When, like, there was a guy who worked at, like, I think it was like a fire watch tower or something like that, that showed that in that area, sounds, like locating sounds is like one of the hardest things for human ears to do. Like, how many shots happened and where the shots came from vary a lot based on eyewitness testimony of the assassination. And there's been multiple studies to show that, like, when like somebody is like in a forest or something like that and they hear multiple gunshots, even in like experimental situations, they're not very well able to determine where the shots came from or how many there actually were. So that all, like, and then of course a lot of the times also they talk about how there's a lot of inconsistencies in people's personal speeches, like the sort of personal testimonies they gave to the police. And the reason is because people have notoriously bad memories, especially in like high drama, energetic situations, like, say, seeing the fucking president's head explode in front of you. So, like, a lot of times your memories are actually really inaccurate. And then, as the JFK assassination conspiracy theory took root, and there was, like, you know, clout to be had on having interesting takes on the conspiracy, then even more people can go on. It also happened very quickly. Yeah, there's a lot of people who say that he wouldn't have been able to shoot that fast. But the thing is that, like, also Lee Harvey Oswald was a fucking trained Marine, and he could fight. And like the amount of shots that happened, like, it was like 3 shots in like 4 seconds, something like that. It is, with the gun that he had, something that a trained marksman would be able to do. It's just like that's just a fact about like he wasn't like an idiot. He knows how to fire a gun, and he knows how to, like, he knows, like, he would have like the muscle memory of, like, you know, load, aim, fire, reload, aim, fire, reload, like, yeah. Questioning can also enter memory. So I guess I just gave my video. That's my video on the JFK assassination. He used a bolt action rifle. Yeah. And if you are trained with a bolt action rifle, like if you are, say, you know, somebody who was in the Marines, you would be able to, like, because when you're in the military, I guess, like, it's this, like, when you are a person who is in the military, the thing that they are trying to turn you into is a person who has to put as little thinking between input, like order input and action as possible. This is why they drill soldiers constantly, right? They want it so that that all of your actions, your marching, your moving, your stuff, like the space between being told to do it and doing it, or seeing the you know, reaction, like the reaction to action, is instantaneous. Because very often that could save your ass. That could save your life in an actual, like, fighting situation. So that's why they do it, right? Like, and also because, like, the whole point of a military functioning is that the entire thing works as a cohesive unit on the battlefield. So when it comes to learning how to shoot, soldiers are drilled so often with shooting that, like, load, aim, fire becomes like muscle memory. It's not a thing that like keep in mind, soldiers have to learn how to do that stuff when like they're getting shot at and like while there's like explosions and everything around them. So they drill it so hard, and like so like that kind of like thing, like doing it under, even with the adrenaline of what you're doing, would be completely doable. Have I read The Devil's Chessboard? Alan Dulles, The CIA by David Talbot. It's a lot of the story of the CIA's attitude to Kennedy behind the scenes. I have not read that book, but yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of like the JFK assassination conspiracy is one of those things where like it's full of like really bad analysis, but there's so much of it. And like with the 9/11 conspiracy theory is that if you don't address literally every single thing, they're going to be like, well, I found the one thing you didn't address. Ha. And it's like, Jesus Christ. If I made like the JFK documentary that they wanted, it would be infinite long because they just keep making up new shit all the time. Whew. All right, that was a lot. That was a lot to say. Okay. The Star Trek artwork behind you looks interesting. Does it have a story? Yeah. So this is there's this artist. Let me get his name actually, because his stuff is really cool. I plan on buying more of it in the future. It's on my treats list for when I'm not in debt anymore, and I actually have positive money that I can use to buy things. Will Burrows. Will Burrows, which you can find at willburrowsart.com, sells a bunch of like leftist Star Trek stuff. And this is one of them. So what it is it's so this is I don't know if you guys, I don't know how much American history you know, but there's a famous pro-labor. Let me just find it. Let me just find like your labor is entitled to all it creates. So let me find the picture. So there's this famous like pro-labor like propaganda poster, for lack of a better term, that was really popular, like, you know, during like the kind of the 50s or whatever, when this was like a big deal. Let me see. Got it right here. So let me just go to the browser view. So your boss needs you, you don't need him. Labor is entitled to all it creates. And you see like this sort of like look here, like this, like this is sort of like, hey, talk to your coworkers about class consciousness. Unions are good, that kind of thing, right? So this picture, which I'll show like a more, I'll try to see if I can find a better version of it on the internet so you can actually see it up close. So this is obviously a parody, I guess you'd say, of it. But yeah, your boss needs you, you don't need them. Labor is entitled to all it creates, with Rom and Chief O'Brien and Lita from freaking Deep Space Nine. Because there's an episode of Deep Space Nine, one of the best episodes of Star Trek ever made, where Quark's bar, who Lita and Rom work for, unionize. And freaking Chief O'Brien mentions that like his like great grandpa was like a really famous union leader, and that like he was a union man, and union, like he does this whole speech that's amazing about how unions are awesome. And so this person made that. He also has like, and so he sells that poster, and Kelly knows that I really like that poster, and she also knows that because Tristan isn't exactly happy in the money department, that I will never buy it for myself, and so she got it for me as a gift for our anniversary, and I like it a lot. But Will Burrows also sells like a anti-fascist 3 arrows like Starfleet Delta pin that you can buy. It's also got the it's got a similar pin, but it's got the sickle and hammer. It's got a Bell Riots 2024 sticker that looks like the Bernie Sanders logo. It's got a Friend of Dax sticker, pin, and t-shirt that is, it's a picture of Jadzia Dax, and it's got the colors of the trans flag on it. And I think it's got another one for Garrick with like a rainbow, for, because, you know, Garrick, all that kind of stuff. It's got a bunch of like Deep Space Nine related leftist shit, and I want to buy all of it all the time. And they complain about Star Trek going woke. Yeah, just be like, honey, Star Trek's always been woke. Romunism, yeah. So, yeah. On the thing about conspiracy theories, people are asking, though. Conspiracy theories are... My running theory about conspiracy theories is that they tend to show up when reality runs afoul of somebody's personal politics. And you can trace a lot of it back to that, or just about like a response to like general cultural anxieties about a subject. And in the 1960s, like the U.S. getting into this extremely unpopular war, and also they tend to revolve around big dramatic news events. So people were very anxious about the large size of groups like the CIA, the three-letter organizations that were basically doing all sorts of sketchy shit all over the place, and that the U.S. was like in this endless war, and they couldn't figure out why this war that nobody wanted to be part of was still happening. And they wrapped it around the JFK assassination and built up this conspiracy to sort of elaborate on that kind of stuff. Miles O'Brien, the most important man in all of Starfleet. Yeah. Man, I just need to rewatch Deep Space Nine. It's such a good show. It's such an amazing show. I feel like I should just always be watching Deep Space Nine, like every once in a while. Just like you know how like hardcore Christians, they do what are they called, devotionals, where they're basically just always reading the Bible in little chunks every day. I should be doing that with Deep Space Nine. My DS9 devotional. I feel like I should be doing that with the Pathfinder books, because that game is really complicated. I'm going to be running a probably multi-year campaign in it, and I should probably know the rules of the game, because it's a very hard game to run. Anyways, should we care about opposing people with a few $1 million now? With all the inflation and money made since the 19th century, it seems a person with a total net of $5 or even $10 million is little in common with billionaires. It's true they have little in common with billionaires, but they're also very comfortable. And while they're not like, you know, they're not often they typically are they're typically, if they're not like bourgeois, like petit bourgeoisie, as Marx would say about them, which are like sort of people who profit off of their own labor, like small business owners and stuff like that. And there's a whole thing about how small business owners are basically tyrants in and of themselves. But like, they also could be what are called lumpen proletariat, which are basically like sort of the well-off proletariat. While they do, you know, get exploited, they are materially comfortable enough that they don't really get involved in revolutionary action. That also being said, like, yeah, anybody like who is old enough to have been able to buy a house in the Toronto area is like technically a millionaire, I guess. So who knows? But you're right. Yeah. Like millionaire does not mean anything close to what it used to mean. That's for sure. Strange New World seems like the best written Trek since Deep Space Nine. It's pretty close, I gotta say. I do like Strange New Worlds quite a bit. Lower Decks is also very, very good. But I also I feel like I'm biased. I feel like I like all Star Trek. There's no Star Trek show I've hated. There's definitely some that I definitely thought were pretty weak. Like I thought that I mean Voyager, I'm gonna say Voyager and Enterprise were not great, but I'm like even they had some good episodes here and there. I think the closest thing to like a bad Star Trek show was probably Enterprise. Enterprise had some episodes that I was like, especially in like season 3, that I like legitimately hated, and came from a place of like Star Trek turned like weird and reactionary during Enterprise in a way I didn't like. There was an animated, yeah, the 1970s Star Trek show. It's probably the only Star Trek that I haven't watched or I haven't watched all the way through, and because the few episodes I've seen, I've just been like, ugh, not a fan. It's very cheaply animated. So there's some stuff that people like about it. I think the first Native American Starfleet officer is depicted in the animated series, but it's not my favorite. More D20 splat books. Uh-huh. Any recommendations for any splat books that are weird or space western? I don't actually have a lot of splat books, honestly. Tristan, I have recently been informed that French Canadians apparently don't have croissant like their European counterparts. Explain this crime against humanity. Easy. The French Canadians have been separated from French cuisine for like 300 something years, and so developed its own sort of culture. And furthermore, French Canadians French Canadians were like, as a class, rather poor for a good chunk of history. So like the sort of like high cuisine of like what became associated with French cuisine, like fancy stuff, never really became a big thing. Although I will so instead you end up with like Quebecois food, which is it's interesting. There's a lot of like it's interesting. It's like there's a lot of bread and there's still a lot of butter. So like there's still like very much a French influence. Like when I was in Quebec, one of the weirdest things that I remember that is like a cultural phenomenon there is that in Quebec it is customary to butter your crust on your bread when you're having pizza. When you're done eating your slice of pizza, you put butter, like they give you, like when you go to a pizza restaurant in Quebec, they'll give you like your pizza and they'll give you like, you know, those like little plastic things of butter, because the normal thing to do in Quebec is put butter on your pizza crust before you eat it. And I'm like, oh boy, couldn't be without dairy that long, huh? For real, yeah. What's it called in Quebec? Like, because Quebec has like their farms, they have a lot of dairy. Like, dairy's like huge in Quebec. So like, for example, like people in Quebec, like a lot more people in Quebec drink like homo milk, or what do you call it in America? Whole milk? Like 3.5% milk? Like, I've seen like adult people drink 3% milk. Also like yeah, so like dairy and cheese is like a really big thing there too. But yeah, but I don't know, it's just like a thing in Quebec. They're really into dairy. But for some reason, because like all a croissant is really like, I mean, this is going to show my ignorance, but if I recall, it's just like there's a lot of like, it's just like a lot, like it's like making bread dough with like a lot of butter, and you do something to it to make it flaky, but I don't exactly remember what that is. But yeah, but Quebecois cuisine is like, whenever I think about Quebecois cuisine, I think of like, it's a lot of stuff with like maple syrup, because Quebec is where like a lot of Canada's maple syrup comes from. So all year, especially during Sugar Shack season, which is like because like all the maple syrup is all harvested like in the first week when winter is out, like, because like syrup is made from tree sap, right? And tree sap is in many ways like a tree's antifreeze. Like, it's a thing that they make to keep the liquids inside of them, like, you know, the tree version of blood, to keep it from freezing in, like, you know, the cold Quebec winter. So they use like sugar and stuff sort of to, like, you know, to make it so that it has a lower freezing point. It's still like very thick and viscous though. But in the like first thaw, so like the first time that the temperature goes above 0 at the end of winter is like the week when everybody goes and gets the maple syrup, because you have to, like, you know, go to because then they're like starting to run. That's when it starts to run. And so during that week, there's just a lot of maple shit all the time, constantly. And so, you know, like whenever I think like maple ham, maple sausage, maple like another big Quebecois thing is crétin, which is sort of like pâté, but it's made with pork instead of like organ meat. It's sort of like cheap pate that you can put on like crackers, like, but like that's really popular. What's another one? During Sugar Shack season, one of the fun things that you can do is you take the hot maple sugar and you pour it on snow, and it rapidly cools, and it sort of congeals into like this almost like sticky toffee type stuff, and you wrap that around a popsicle stick and you eat that. That's fun. Can you get syrup from other trees? I think you can. I think like I don't know exactly, but I think that they also make stuff with spruce. Like you can get like another thing that's popular in Quebec is what's called spruce beer, which is sort of like, I don't know how to describe its flavor, but it's like it's made with spruce. Pate is already kind of gross. Yeah, I mean, pate is not. It's I think it's tasty, but you know, obviously don't think about it too much. But creton is like, it's like pork, and like it's got like onions and the same kind of spices, and it has the same consistency. It's just like, you know, common. I'm trying to think what else would be like traditional Quebec. Tourtière, which is sort of like a pie that's made with like minced meat and spices. What else is there? Yeah, there's also a lot of stuff that comes from the fact that Montreal has a large Jewish community, so like with the smoked meat sandwich and the bagels and everything like that. But yeah, bagels, patin. Patin is recent. Patin is like that's the thing that most people know from like Quebec, but patin is like basically like, it was probably invented by like some sort of like low budget like Greek restaurant in Montreal, because it's designed to be something you eat when you're fucking shit faced and it's like 4 a.m. and you just want to eat something that'll make it so you don't have a hangover the next day. Patin is like the Quebecois word for like a mess. Like that's what the word comes from. Patin means like mess. And yeah, it's just like, it is the kind of food that would only logically make sense if you're shit-faced. The thing I said about the sugar on the snow is called tire d'érable, which means like pole maple. Frère yeah, like what's it called? Beans cooked in fat. That's a pretty good one. Yeah, beans with breakfast is like a common thing in Quebec. Pâté chinois, which is like a Quebecois pie. Yeah. Tourtière. Oh man. Tarte au sucre. Oh yeah, sugar pie. They make pie out of maple syrup too. So yeah. Oh man, classic. Mincemeat pie. The thing is that mincemeat pie, from my recollection, mincemeat pie doesn't have meat in it. Mincemeat pie is like fruit, isn't it? We only have it around Christmas time here, but like mincemeat, I thought like for some reason is like berries and shit, and I don't even know the story behind that. Was shocked to learn that patin, though all over Canada, is totally absent in the US. It'll make it eventually, right? Also, the rest of Canada doesn't make patin properly. The thing is that like people think that it is. There's this idea that people think that that patin is like gravies and cheese, but it's like a very specific thing. It's not gravy, it's brown sauce, which I know sounds like completely like a distinction without a difference, but typically the stuff you use for patin doesn't have cornstarch in it. It doesn't have the thickening agents that you put in gravy, so it's a lot runnier. And then you also don't put cheese, you put cheese curds, because one of the things that's also in Quebec, because of their obsession with dairy, is that they eat cheese curds a lot. You can get cheese curds like at the convenience store there, the corner shop. So you have to get cheese curds. In America, we have to call it poutine. Honestly, like I call it poutine because I lived in Quebec, but most people call it poutine. It's hard to say poutine. That's what most people in Ontario would call it here. But I got corrected so many times when I lived in Quebec that I just it's poutine. Speaking of English, have you ever had a full English breakfast? Yes, I had one when I was in London, and it was great. Definitely not a thing to have every day, but it's definitely it's worth having at least once. British food is disgusting. I think that, there's a lot of parts of it that are pretty gross, but I feel like there is good British food. It's not all gross, and there is good British stuff. And whenever I go to the UK, it's great to have the full English breakfast is a solid thing to have. It's fun to do once. And your classics like your toad in the hole and your shepherd's pies and all that. Those are also I'm not going to be a hater. They're good. They're obviously not very adventurous in the cuisine department, but they're solid. They're solid meals that are enjoyable in the right context. All right. How much was it appropriated by crypto people? Is there a term for with how much it was appropriated by the crypto people? Is there a point to using the term decentralized anymore? I hope so, because decentralized is a very useful category, and I think it's a good thing to do. Sausage rolls, yeah. The fact that I know so many British people who have gone full vegan and still regularly buy vegan sausage rolls shows that the sausage roll is you can get them here pretty easily too. The sausage roll is good, and it's good, damn it. I will stick by. British cuisine is, it's very, very not good for you. But let's not fucking pretend that sausage rolls aren't good. Or, pretend that the full English breakfast every once in a while isn't a great way to start your day. Yeah. So, yeah. Did you answer my question earlier? I want to know if I should go back and look. What question was it? I answered all the questions submitted to the thing. But all the things that were submitted through the forum, I answered. But anyways, we're getting close to the end of the stream. Time just flew. I think we had a good time today. I feel like this was a much more light-hearted stream than we normally have, which I'm happy about. I feel like we had a good long talk about food and fiction and stuff like that. So this feels good, especially because I'm probably gonna have a pretty stressful week before the next stream. So yeah. Well, it's almost 2 o'clock. Yeah, we got about 15 seconds. All right, so what I will say, friends, is thank you so much for sticking around. I love doing this stuff for you, and I know I got kind of a little bit sad about my future and everything like that, but as long as I can continue to do it, even if it's something I can't do full time, it will be a thing that I will continue to do because I love doing this stuff. I love making this stuff. I love talking to you guys, and so I'll try to keeping it going as long as I can afford to do so. But yeah, please be good to yourself. Be good to each other. Go get a sausage roll, vegan or otherwise. And I'll see you guys next time.